So in theory now, you've seen every single player in the tournament, right? In those intros? Yeah, maybe they've been a bit quick. We'll have to get used to those as the next 2 weeks go on. It is day 4 here in the Gold Team League. It is the end of week number 1 of 9. And we've got Lee and Trunks representing RNG and LP respectively. We know both of these players, of course, from the Western scene. They played in global championships and various other championships along the way. Lee, in fact, if he had beaten Bloodyface in the global championships last year, would have faced Lion in the final to make it an all-China final. Let's keep an eye on how Lee does. Both of these players won their first match 3-0 in this tournament. We've seen those already. Lee swept with Zoo in his last hero standing format, while Trunks swept with his secret rogue. But today we're starting off with some good old Demon Hunter on Demon Hunter stuff. Be interesting to see how this works out. Lee is playing the Demon version. I believe Trunks is playing the same. Just let me look into that. I had it all lined up as always, and as always I managed to flub. Now Lee is in fact playing, you can see he's playing the normal version, or the non-normal version if you like, the more expensive version which was normal at the time. Trunks is playing the version we know and love, topping out at Skull of Gul'dan. Very few demons in there. Interesting openers, both players not having the early one drops, and that doesn't always necessarily turn out badly. However, in the matchup as it stands, with Lee having the heavier build of the deck, that puts Lee into a slightly better position. In theory, obviously having the double twin slice is also something that will come in handy should his hand develop that way. Trunks, on the other hand, he would love right now to have twin slice in his hand, and he has everything but. Those satyrs with a twin slice would be nice, as would the adept. But as it is, he is tormented here. Do you want to just throw a 4-2 away? And what he needs to do to decide if that makes any sense at all, and obviously every Hearthstone instinct is you don't just put a 4-2 into a 2-2, especially one costs 3 times the amount of the other. When do I get to play my second satyr? Does the game ever go long enough for that to matter? And what he's looking at here, you saw him very briefly hover over the cane, is if this trade takes place, and Lee's going to take this trade, he may end up, because of his hand, actually using Umberwing and Hero Power and tanking 4 to the face. But Trunks is hoping to use his cane to trade into something, get the board and keep the cane alive. 3-5 is a really good shape in this matchup. It kills pretty much anything Lee can throw at him. Lee's main issue here is, I don't know if he's got a main issue here, to be honest. I guess he wants to work out how to get these skulls, especially the right hand one, into some sort of shape. There was the option, I guess, like to look at, where you use your hero power, you use a slice, and then you play the Umberwing. So you've used a slice, but you have Umberwing operational for 2 more swings. Because he's not going to be able to equip... Next turn he can equip Warglaives if he draws them. But after that, he's going into Skull turns. And so having a weapon up for the next 2 turns is something he had to seriously consider. But he did, in the end, rate the slices higher up than he rated the 1 Umberwing charge. Well, that's actually a really tough decision to make. They must be quite similar, with plenty of pros and cons for each. Well, this is a grim looking turn, and it's kind of the same problem here, except obviously you tend to want to use the Eye Beam whilst it has got the Outcast ability going on. But there is also the option to just not use any resources at all this turn and hang on in there. That's pretty bleak, but I think you have to do it. And then just don't swing at all. Obviously you put 1/1 to face. And then next turn, when you go to the skull, you can remove a lot of things. And in some worlds, maybe you draw an Altruist and everything goes nuts on turn 6. He is actually going to attack face. This is interesting to me. Okay, so equipping the Warglaves and then just... It's so tempting to leave these up. It's so tempting to leave these up. And he does. I love this play from Trunks. I don't even know if it's right, but by leaving it up next turn, in the most obvious move of the century, he can play the Satyr and make a whole board of 2/2s. Like, it's telegraphed. It is absolutely out there. Lee knows what is coming next turn. And with that in mind, he doesn't really want to swing and put a Glavebound into the face because he knows it's just going to get taken down. That being said, if you do choose to just swing and put 4 damage into face here, and your opponent wants to go crazy with his Adept, with his weapon, he's going to have to eat a lot of damage. But yeah, sticking to the plan. And I assume that he will not play this Battle Fiend, because he knows the plan. Or he may just feel that there's nothing he can do, but I think he'd rather wait until he can at least swing and make it a 2/2 for his opponent to trade into. Yep. Dodgers, again, not the most subtle plan ever, but they don't have to be subtle to work. And now Trunks, he's made this bed and he's got a lie in it as far as I'm concerned. It was pretty clear that Lee had an expensive hand, which means there's a very good chance Skull was coming. If you're now scared of Altruist, it's too late. If you're going to make this play, you should have been scared of Altruist last turn, when you still had the chance to pull the plug on the play. But now I think you are committed to making a board of 2/2s. Probably drawing 1 card here, yeah, before you start. And off you go. Here comes all the things. You're even going to get a free minion at the end of it. So yeah, Lee is like the least surprised I've ever seen a Hearthstone player. He also wants to draw Altruist really, really, really urgently, because that would swing the game right around if he could pick it up. 1 in 18 chance, why wouldn't it happen? But it doesn't. So, he's on 23, he's got a little bit of time. Emergency number 1 is you have to kill the 4/2. The leading Satyr of the lot has to bite the bullet. Maybe you want to take that down with an Adept, but then mana doesn't work. You could use a Slice and a Hero Power to take down a 2/2, then lob down an Adept and your Battle Fiend, kill the 4/2 with the Adept, challenge the board with your Battle Fiend, which you'd play before you swung. And yeah, that's my final answer. And then next turn, you've put up enough stuff this turn. Trunks will be occupied with what you're doing, and then you will play what I believe in the Chinese terms is an Angry Priestess. Have a look. Yep, Angry Priestess. Thanks to the wonderful world of translation. Let's see how he's chosen to do it. So he's chosen to draw into more stuff, maybe looking for that Altruist, which would have just saved the day. And this way, obviously nowhere near as effective health-wise, but it does tempo-wise take over the game to some degree. It also saves his Adept, which is a nuance of the mirror. It's not a particularly hard one to learn, that if you can avoid playing the first Adept, this is a good thing, because the 6/4 nature of an Adept means that other Adepts kill it. So the person who plays the last Adept is the one who has the hardest Adept to kill. Obviously, in the real world, you end up usually just playing it on turn 5 and hoping they don't have theirs. That's That's just fine, but he found a really good solution here that didn't involve playing it. And that matters because now Trunks might have to play the first one. Down to 12 and 17, so this is where the matchup gets really terrifying. One mistake, you lose the game. And worth pointing out that this is very much like very original Hearthstone, original sort of classical Hearthstone, where it's still super complicated, but you never see anything you don't understand. There's never a really weird interaction or anything. You just play the cards as they seem fit. Super skillful, super difficult to work out where to go. This is nicely set up, by the way, just counting this lethal. And he'd obviously counted this out a long time ago because this is exacties, not just with mana but with his cards. And here's the first winner to really go for the water pose. One of my favourite things, winners tend to drink, losers tend not to drink, or at least not the water during the game anyway. Lee takes a 1-0 lead with Demon Hunter versus Demon Hunter. In Conquest, that's not a big deal. In Last Hero Standing, it is a massive deal. You have a very powerful deck remaining and your opponent has lost a very powerful deck. Trunks queuing up the Rogue. This is better than you would imagine against Demon Hunter, like classes with no healing. And Rogue is basically that. Obviously it can choose to heal, but current Rogue builds don't do that. Classes with no healing tend to just lose to decks that relentlessly hit them. But actually, Demon Hunter doesn't always relentlessly hit you. It'll do a lot of damage, but Rogue then starts bouncing and blocking and putting things in the way. And Demon Hunter doesn't have that much direct damage. Sure, it has Adept that does 4, it has hero powers that can do 1 if there's no taunts in the way. There's Kane as a closer, obviously that is super irritating because taunts just ignore it. But it's not like ludicrous, it's not like Hunter just chipping away for 2 with its power every single turn. But with that in mind, this is a really nice looking start here for Lee. The I-Beam is going to be active next turn as well. So this is Ambush, which I believe I've called Assassinate on about 17 different occasions so far in this tournament. You live and learn. And playing around Ambush when all 3 secrets are in your opponent's deck can be a little bit awkward, but you just carry on and see what happens. And already 10 of Trunks' health has gone, he hasn't done anything. Picking up Edwin is always a fascinating moment. You're never going to make a big Edwin in this match. It's just not happening. You know, the game's going to be over 4 turns time. If the Rogue wins, it might go a bit longer, but if the Rogue wins, it's not because it made a big Edwin, it's because it played a 4-4 or 6-6 Edwin at the right time. Trunks may well be going through all of the options of the lackeys here. If you coin into Miscreant, you have 7 lackeys you can pick up. Titanic's fine. Slows things down a little bit, it's not good. Cobalt's great, it shoots down the Battle Fiend. Goblin's fine, you just trade into the Battle Fiend. And then creating dragons and spells. Creating spells is okay, creating dragons not so much. I think you just coin into the Miscreant, having gone through the options, and hope you get the lackey you're looking for. Seal Fate is the best way to take damage off the board. There were still 1 or 2 lackeys that helped. But it's also the best way to not have the board going into the next turn. And for me, it didn't feel like a play to win. I can certainly see that Trunks can draw a Shield of Galakond, plonk it in the way, and then use his other cards to get to the board and get out of trouble here. I'm not going to criticise it. I think Trunks played his last match excellently. I'm just curious as to his plan for getting the board, and of course we will see that unfold. It's always nice to see why I am wrong, let's face it. Trunks not a player, weirdly enough, that I was overly impressed with when I first started commentating, which is actually when he had his good run. But he did seem to be playing solid Hearthstone in his previous round here. And his previous run that I knew was sort of before his really good run. It was when he was just starting to qualify for things. Feel like he got high up the ladder by being lucky, but he's taken advantage of that and become a strong player because of it, from what we have seen so far. But he is up against it here against Leaoh. Leaoh is having a great tournament. Already played 4 games of Hearthstone and has won 4 games of Hearthstone. And looking in a great spot to make it 5 with that cane in hand. Well, there isn't even a taunt in hand for Trunks, but if there was, unlucky, it wouldn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, you're taking Deadly Poison. You are not using that unless you get another lackey that gives you... Oh my goodness, the name has just gone out of my head. The thing that blows up your weapon and does damage to all the minions. Let's go with that card. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's about 11 damage there, maybe 12. Not enough. So now you have to play for board a little bit. But do you really have to do much here? So the only condition on this turn is you can't play Kane and your Umberwing. Okay, that's not how 6 works. So you may want to keep Kane back in case your opponent plays Shield of Galakon next turn and you want the finishing blow. If you want to do that, you have to set up lethal now. And that, I would imagine, to some degree involves I-beaming down the Miscreant. Alright, well this works. The Miscreant, sure, it's a threat, it's going to kill something. But pushing all this damage to face does sort of fulfill the condition I was just talking about, where you just want to lethal next turn. So the 2-1 gets killed. That leaves 6 damage on the board. 2 damage worth of weapon with a hero power on the weapon. Which is what, 8? And then the Slice and Cane is another lethal. And we've just seen Lee calculate an exact lethal far more complicated than this one. And that's a really, really nice piece of play there to leave this up. She's like, yeah, your Miscreant's going to be a good card. But I don't care if you've got a good card if you have no health. Seems like a respectable way to approach this. Blade Flurry, by the way. Didn't even have to Google. Just started thinking about Blade Flurries in the middle of this turn. That's what the other card was called. Oh, and now you play Titanic Lackey because that feels like the thing to do. Although Trunks could work this out, it would be a godly read not to play a Titanic Lackey this turn on at least something. The correct play is probably to turn the Miscreant into something else, but I don't know how you could ever read this. This, I think, is just correct from what he sees. But we can see the true reasoning of what's been going on. We don't care about your imaginary taunt. We don't have to attack the minion with taunt. That's not how the game works at the moment. And Lee is 2-0 ahead. And Trunks has lost his counter queue. And for what we've seen so far in this tournament, if you go 2-0 behind, you have a very bad time. Although Bunny Hopper did manage a reverse sweep, I believe, in the previous rounds. I flick back through my notes. Yep, Bunny was 2-0 down. And then reverse sweep with Mage of all things. Well, talking to Mage of all things, here we go. It's going to have to behave itself here for Trunks. Needs to go through Demon Hunter, Zoo, and then the Warrior. This is possible, but difficult. Astromancer's not a bad card. It at least challenges the board. Nor's Bone Wraith, actually, and Nor's the Reno. Maybe you keep 3 of these cards. It's a bit slow. maybe you don't keep them all. You need to find Zephyrus, maybe. Just to stop yourself from dying too quickly. So just keeps the Reno, trusting his deck a little bit to at least get in there. And that makes a lot of sense. I think something that's changed in modern Hearthstone is people are getting greedier and greedier with mulligans in general. Now, part of that is due to the fact that decks have a higher power level between their good cards and the bad cards now, especially Highlander decks, of course. Some of your stuff is just straight up filler and some of it is amazingly good. But across all of Hearthstone, people are getting greedier with their mulligans. So, Flame Ward present here for Trunks is a really good deal. But Lee has the chance to go pretty nutty here. He saw one card kept. He needs to consider what that could be. There aren't many things it can be, given the level of greed that one card suggests. Can you really not play the Battle Fiends here? Okay, fascinating. He's going to split his damage up to avoid potential Doomsayer and Flame Ward. And this is the downside of such a plan. The upside of the plan is that you don't lose all your things to one card. The downside is you don't put enough pressure on to force your opponent to have to use the card. And as always, that is not a criticism, that is an observation, and we will get to see both sides of how that observation works out. So yeah, Trunks has played enough Hearthstone to know to just take a few breaths here. Just play the Flame Ward, but yeah, there wouldn't have been much thinking going into anything else. I think you want to just get on with this. I think you want to go face, then attack with the 4-1 Fiend, and just play your Fell Screamer. Just waiting. It's not like playing against Hunter where eventually you end up trading into their minions if you wait, because that's the only way they can kill you. This mage kills you through attrition, and eventually it's just going to make you attack. So you're getting on with it, play the Fell Screamer, and then just set up to draw your Priestess. Also gives you a very good next turn anyway, if you want it, with the Satyr. But Trunks has cleared up the first attack wave, and that is definitely a good thing to have going your way as the mage. Could be the beginning of a big comeback. So instantly on drawing the skull, Lee had his play worked out, but now just needs to quickly double check that he doesn't want to tear through his hand. It doesn't make any difference as it happens, that's what the check was for. He wants to clear up this orc, just carry on with his game plan, but always noting your position of your skull. You're not playing skull next turn, you've got such a great... Do you want to do this? Very interesting. Again, sacrificing a possible extra minion for the immediate damage, the long-term damage too, because that's more of these swings are going to face than to minions. Giving up a little bit of wide board, but working on the assumption that if he ever has a wide board, it gets destroyed, I think. And the one time he played the wide board, he had given Trunks the chance to have some sort of answer. Didn't see that answer, and so went for the wide board, and Trunks' restraint really helped there. Oh, Metamorphosis. 10 points of lovely, lovely damage. So it looks like Lee is going to create a dual front here. If he attacks face, which he will do, and play the Satyr, which he will probably do, but remember, with the reduced cost, he might want to play the Priestess for 5 next turn. But all this damage is like a red herring. You do all this damage to your opponent, and they spend time cleaning up your board and all that nonsense, and you just shoot them twice with the meta, and that will be the end of the game. So yeah, you need to play the distraction. You need to keep Trunks occupied. One weakness of mages is their spells cost a lot of mana. So if you want to spend a lot of mana clearing this up, that's great for you because it allows you to just set up your double ping that you're going for. You shouldn't die on 23, even with the spell damage going on. Yeah, and he's just going for this 2-turn lethal. He reads it the same way I do. Trunks shifts around in his seat unhappily there, and if he can't find an answer or some healing going into next turn, and this one turn before Alex Straza, no heal available there. I was talking earlier about things that can go face and mentioned only the Adepts. Well, the meta can also go face. These can go face, but I think it's double for a second. Trunks is going to have to give this up, I think. And that will be the second win for Lee and RNG. We will see different players representing RNG next week. But they have won 3-0 twice and lead the table after week 1.